Hey, welcome to the Bill and Frantz show.
Today, our guests are Matthew, Schickele, and Hai-Ting Chinn.
Welcome.
Greetings.
Welcome. So what do y'all do?
Fine question. We're both musicians. I'm a composer.
I'm a classical singer, so basically opera, but I end up doing a whole lot of crazy projects that are really unclassifiable, so they say classical singer.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Because it means I sing like an opera singer, no matter what I'm singing.
Well, that's cool. I've never met an opera singer, man.
I'm not sure that has changed. I mean, I am an opera singer. I use that as shorthand, but actually very little of what I sing could be called opera, depending on the year. I mean, it really changes.
Okay. Let me ask you this. So do you jump into other genres of music?
Not necessarily other genres, but other kinds of projects that aren't necessarily straight ahead operas with acting on stage, singing with an orchestra in a big house, because that's how people think of opera. You know, I've never worn a horned helmet except at the party store. I've never been a fat lady, and I can't think of another opera
the only
stereotype.
Opera stereotypes you can think of. Gotta be more.
But I sing. I have sung some opera that you might recognize if you know anything about opera, like some Mozart, and I've sung a lot of things in concert that sound like opera, like The Messiah at Christmas, and Ave Maria at the weddings and the funerals and things like that.
And Matthew, you've also done classical as well as pop music and things like that. You're a bit of a range.
Yeah, I write anything I can get my hands on. I will write, from pop songs to string quartets to sound collages to songs for Hai-Ting to sing.
Jack of all trades.
Yeah, well, you know, in music you kind of just have to get whatever you can.
Sheeta mentioned the horned hat, and there's one of your songs from your rock and roll era that I always think of, a big horned hat. That
Oh, really?
One.
Huh?
The song "One" from your band.
Oh, that is kind of a...
Not that one. You
no,
didn't write that.
I didn't write that one. No.
It's a song called "One." It's very heavy, and I always imagined you playing this big guitar with a.
It's a little Viking, that song.
Hat,
it's true. I think I may never be able to hear that song again, thanks to you.
You're welcome. Look for it.
Thanks to that
Beekeeper
image.
1, W-O-N.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the two of you are a pair because you're working on some music together.
Yes, we have for a couple of years been developing a bunch of what is essentially our science-themed music pieces of music.
Because we're both science geeks and we're both musicians,
Right.
and we both at some point thought that we should do something to further the cause of science and scientific thinking, but we were just musicians, so this is what we did.
So what do you do?
That's cool. Mixing music and science.
It seems to be a popular theme these days.
Yeah, when we first started doing it, we were like, "Oh, this is great. We should totally start setting science texts, and no one's doing this." And you know, and now we sort of, every time you open the paper, it's like, "Oh, someone else doing it. Someone else doing it." It's actually becoming quite common, which is great. The more, the merrier, as far as I'm concerned.
So some of your music, you set quotes of scientists and things like that to music?
Yeah, we sometimes we sort of have two different approaches that we take. Sometimes we'll just take quotes, either by scientists or by science journalists or communicators, that just sort of briefly represent some nice idea about either science or scientific thinking or rationalism, etc. And then we also have other pieces that are more explicitly explanatory, of like taking some concept about the universe or astronomy or something like that, and try to explain it in a musical way. And those are the two approaches that we've been taking, right?
Yes, that sounds about right. And along with just the music, I've been developing a show. I have a residency at a place called Here, annoyingly called Here, Here. And they refuse to call themselves Here Theater or Here Art Center, but other people call them that. It's in Soho in New York, and
Here.org.
Yes, they have here.org, HERE.org. And I'm a resident there to develop a theatrical staged version of this science set to music show. So I'm doing something somewhere between like Bill Nye, Carl Sagan doing an opera, except it's just me and a pianist showing you some scientific stuff, some pretty pictures of the universe, and instead of explaining it in speech, I'm explaining it in song.
That's great. No, really,
That's a stamp of
because
approval right there.
I mean, me, when I was in school, I liked science, but I didn't like the way my teacher taught it. It was boring the way he taught it, but then I had another teacher who taught it. He was so excited about science that it made me excited about science. So if you're gonna get out there and do the music, I mean, how the audience responded to this?
So far, the
Very well
responses
so
have
far.
been very good. The project is still kind of in its infancy, so some of it has just been songs with slideshow, which is what we're going to do tomorrow at the Ethical Culture Society here in St. Louis. But some of it has been more hands-on, doing stuff with chemistry or with demonstrations about the phases of the moon and things like that. And I think especially to those physical demonstrations, people's reactions has been really good. We've gotten a lot of great feedback on it.
But your point about the enthusiasm is really is sort of at the root of the whole project, in that enthusiasm makes all the difference for the science is often seen as this sort of sort of like math, and sort of like it's intimidating or it's hard to understand.
It's dry.
It's dry,
It's boring.
and it's not, and it's just a matter of framing it in a way that it makes it a little more accessible for people who aren't used to it. And then we're just trying to do our part, our one little small corner of that larger project that a lot of people are trying to do. Go ahead.
I always like to joke that the things that I love in life, opera and science, are both often perceived as really boring and esoteric. And I thought, well, if I put them together in the right way, then it'll come out with something exciting out of these two boring, esoteric things. But it's really a joke, because I don't feel that way about either opera or science. But it's funny that I try to describe this thing. I say, I'm putting together opera and science. Isn't that exciting? But hopefully it will be.
This song is about watching paint dry.
Hey, that's a good idea. I bet it's pretty fascinating.
I bet scientifically, I expect it is fascinating.
You were telling me about that. You were suggesting that we write a song about water boiling.
Oh, yeah,
Because
yeah.
that scientist on YouTube explained what happens when water boils, and it's actually totally fascinating.
Yeah.
Enthusiasm.
Yeah. That's cool, man, because Obama talks about science a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And wow, am I excited that he does that.
And on that note, let's take a break and maybe hear some of this music.
Without
And welcome back.
Okay. So what's the goal? Where are you headed with this music and science combo?
To completely change the world.
One song at a time.
One song at a time.
We want to actually change the scientific paradigm by singing about it. If we sing hard enough, maybe science will... No. Well, there's this stage show that I am hoping to have together in another year and a half, and that will be a full-length show. It'll be like a 1 or 2 with the pianist woman opera, with full staging / choreography of science and music, and most of the music is by Matthew, although I have a couple guest composers who have come in to write other pieces. And then the other thing is what we're doing at the Ethical Culture Society, which is to take the musical version of it, maybe with slideshow, maybe with some small choreography, around to places that might like to celebrate science in a community way. Maybe science conferences, we'd like to be the entertainment.
Well, we've already done some science conferences. So we
Yes.
have some of this. Some of the stuff was already written for presentations we've done at conferences here and there.
Popular science,
Yeah.
Especially the skeptics. The New England Skeptic Society has a yearly conference called Nexus, and we've performed there the last couple of years. This year we'll be doing a workshop about music and science, and the science of music, whichever way you want to see it. So we hope to perform at conferences like that, but maybe also someday for actual science conferences as kind of the after-work entertainment.
That sounds good to me.
Another stamp of approval.
I'm just saying, man, because I know that as a country we're lacking behind in science and math.
Yeah.
So.
In schools, yes, we'd like to perform in schools as well.
Okay, yeah, so I'm excited about it, man, because I didn't understand when I was coming up. Like I said, science was hard for me because of the teachers that taught it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got some teachers that were really into science and they were just really about teaching and
Enthusiastic.
I learned something.
Yep.
You know, and most of the class was and learned something too.
Yeah.
So it was great. I'm glad to hear it.
For us too, it's also just an outlet for our own enthusiasms. We're both nerds, and we both follow science news, and we actually, when a new paper comes out that physicists are sort of freaking out about, like, oh my God, is this going to change everything? We actually, follow that stuff. So, and just sort of
as best we can.
As best, well, yeah. So this is just us doing our little way, contributing to that feeling of excitement about discovery.
And there's a slightly different angle too. As a classical singer, I mentioned earlier weddings and funerals. The classical music is used to promote a sense of wonder and togetherness and awe at whatever the subject is. The churches and synagogues are just the obvious, but classical music is there to help elevate whatever the subject is, and I wanted to elevate the subject that I get enthusiastic about, so that's one aspect of what we're doing.
You also are working to sort of work towards rationalism and sort of fill in the darkness of knowledge.
For us, as people who try to be rational and who appreciate rationality, but we're also artists, and traditionally there's often these things are described as being in opposition to each other, and how you have, on the one hand you have analytical thinking and rationality, and the other hand you have emotion and art and everything, and for me anyway, it's just I've never really understood that. It's just they feel very similar to me, and so the artistic excitement and wonder that I feel is very similar to the wonder and excitement that I get from exploring the world in a scientific way. I think they're quite interrelated, and I think it's a mistake that is still unfortunately commonly made to think that they are opposing forces, because they're not.
You'll find many scientists who will say that that sense of wonder and awe is what inspired them to be scientists, and that simply the beauty and splendor of life, which is often, like you said, reserved for religion and things like that, is often what inspires them to be more scientific, because the deeper you delve, the more mystery you find, and it just keeps going on indefinitely as we increase our knowledge.
Exactly.
Yeah, truth and the way things actually work are amazing and wonderful, and scientists are often portrayed as sort of emotionless and removed, but absolutely not. The whole thing about discovery is that the truth you're discovering is totally awesome. And like getting there may be tedious, but that's true of any kind of work. Like the work is boring, but the end result, that what you're striving towards, is usually something that is really cool.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear this, because postmodernism has changed a lot of people. You know, it's almost like, man, I'm a postmodernist, man. I don't believe that.
Oh, right.
Even
Like
with the evidence and the facts.
no truth.
Do we
right?
have do we have another hour?
Oh my god, yeah.
Because sometimes I sit in class and I'm amazed. Like, we do have facts about this, right? That doesn't matter. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So that's how we're doing it now.
Yeah. Do you get the well, those are your facts thing? It's like,
Right.
well,
Yes.
how do you define facts then?
How did they become my facts?
Yeah.
I thought they were everybody's facts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a postmodern man.
Ah.
So it's post.
Right.
So this is very necessary. I think that this is a great thing, a great step towards educating more folks and more young people. Because I really don't want to be behind.
We're doing it for you.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. We're also doing it for the not so young people who have forgotten that it's okay to say,
Right.
wow,
Right.
when you figure out something, or even when you remember something that you learned in third grade that you might not have appreciated when you were in third grade because your teacher was boring. And now you're at a stage where you can look back and realize what you learned and say, wow.
And on that note, Matthew Schickele, Hai-Ting Chinn,
Thank you so much for
thank you
having
very
me.
much
Thanks for
joining
having us
us.
on.
Hey, man. Great show. Great guest. That's what we do on the Bill and Frantz show.